Chapter 18 of Heroes of the Middle Ages. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Heroes of the Middle Ages by Eva March Tappan. Chapter 18 Leif Ericsson visits the coast of New England. There was once a Northman called Eric the Red. For some reason he was exiled to Iceland, but in a little while he was in trouble there also. He had lent his seat posts, or wooden posts carved into images of the gods, which stood by the high seats at the feasts, and the man who held them refused to return them. A quarrel had arisen, and in the course of it Eric had slain the man. For this reason he was now exiled from Iceland for 3 years. He knew there was a country lying to the westward, for a sailor caught in a storm had been thrown upon its shores, and he determined to seek it. He found the land and spent 2 or 3 years exploring it. Then he returned to Iceland. He meant, however, to found a colony in the new country, and therefore he called it Greenland. People will not like to move there if it has not a good name, declared this wise colonizer. Probably he had obtained some new seat posts by this time, for the custom was to throw them overboard when land was near and to settle wherever they floated ashore. A few years after, Eric founded his colony in Greenland. His son Leif, or Leif Ericsson, spent a winter in Norway. There he became a Christian and was baptized. When he was about to return to his home in Greenland, King Olaf of Norway said, "I beg of you to see that the people in Greenland are told of the Christ, for no one is better to attend to this than you." So it came about that when Leif returned to Greenland, he carried with him a priest and several other religious teachers. A little later he saved a ship's crew from drowning, and because of this people called him Leif the Lucky. But his father said rather grimly that Leif might have done a good thing in saving the man, but he had done a bad thing in bringing a priest to Greenland. After a while, however, Eric himself became a Christian, and so did his wife, and most of the people followed their example. Now among those who came to Greenland was a man named Bjarn. On the voyage he had been blown out of his course close to an unknown land lying to the south of Greenland, and when he finally reached the colony, he told of how he had seen this land. The Leif and the other young men gathered around him. What sort of country was it? Were there any people there? What grows in the place? Are there mountains or lowlands? They questioned, and Bjarn had to own that he had not gone ashore. "Hump, he was not very eager for knowledge," said the young man rather contemptuously. They talked a great deal about the unknown lands, and finally Leif bought Bjarn's ship, and made ready to go on a voyage of discovery. "Do you go with us as a leader?" he urged his father, but Eric replied, "Oh, I am growing too old for a hard voyage at sea." "But no one else of all our kin will be as lucky as you," pleaded Leif, and at length Eric mounted his horse and rode toward the ship. Suddenly the horse slipped and he fell off. That settled the question. "It is fated," he said, "that I should never discover any other land than Greenland." And so Leif and his men were obliged to sail without him. After a while they came to a shore where lofty mountains rose, covered with snow. This is thought to have been the coast of Labrador. Then they passed a flat and wooded shore, which is believed to have been Nova Scotia. At length they reached a coast that seemed to them most inviting. The shores were of white, shining sand, and beyond them were pleasant woods which seemed to stretch far inland. There were rivers full of salmon and meadows covered with rich grass. Leif and his followers carried their beds to land, sent up their tents, and made ready to explore the country. He divided his men into 2 parties, and made them take turns in staying by the camp and going out to explore. One of the older men on the voyage was a German. One day he came back chattering away in his own language. "Weintrauben!" he exclaimed. "Ich habe Weintrauben gefunden!" The Norseman could not tell what he meant, and at first he was too much pleased and excited to talk Norwegian. At length he told them he had found grapes, such as he used to have when he was a boy, and that was what had pleased him so much. It was because of this discovery that Leif named the country Vinland, or the Land of Vines. This is thought to have been Rhode Island and the southern part of Massachusetts. Then the men set to work to gather grapes and hew wood. Toward spring they took their cargo of wood and dried grapes and sailed back to Greenland. This is the story that the Icelandic sagas or hero stories tell. The voyage took place in the year 1000, and if we may trust the old saga, Leif Ericsson was the first white man to set foot on the continent of America. There is little more of the saga story that ought to be told. After Leif went back to Greenland, a wealthy merchant named Thorfinn Karlsefne went to visit him. On this visit Thorfinn met Gudrid, one of the shipwrecked people whom Leif had rescued so long ago, and married her. She persuaded her husband to go to Vinland to found a colony. The first autumn in the new home their little son, Snorre, was born, at Staumfjord, which is thought to have been what is now Buzzard's Bay. Snorre was the first white child born in Massachusetts. When he was 3 years old the colony was given up, and the baby explorer with his parents returned to Greenland. It was a rough voyage, but the little American boy lived through it, and became the ancestor of a long line of wise and excellent men. The sagas tell of many later voyages to America, but at length a terrible plague came upon the northern lands. In Norway 6/7 of the people died, and Vinland was forgotten. Chapter 19.